All right, so we're gonna get started. Cameron, when you can, Maggie's gonna stick the check-in link into the chat. And when you get where you're going and when you stop, if you could check in, that would be great. We are also doing our mid-program survey. That QR code's also on the screen, and Maggie is sending that. That's also included in the emails that go out. So if you don't get that link today, it is in the emails. So today we're going to be talking about building your organization and your team. The team is one of the most important elements of starting your business. Some would say it might be actually more important than the product itself, because it really matters who your team is and who is going to be delivering the value and the promises of the thing that you're creating and what you're trying to do. So it's really important that we spend some time focusing on the team and the organization. So some things that we are going to be thinking about as we are building the team, things to be considering. And again, we've mentioned before, but these are not things that you have to know and have to be defined right now. These are questions you should be asking yourself. And your first response is, it's okay. It's a first draft response. And then you evolve it as you understand more about your company and your needs and what your direction is. So some things to consider. How will you fill out your management team? So what does that look like? How big of a team is that? How might your role change as the business evolves? And so, as a sole founder, you're doing it all, right? You're doing everything. You're working long hours. It is going to evolve when you bring in other people into your team. And so, what does that look like? And then how can you hire the best people for your team? What do you need and what does that look like? Maggie, would you mind muting? I can hear Jeff. Thank you. What outside resources are you going to bring in and when? So many many things to consider with your team is that you don't have to hire everybody, but you can bring in outside consultants and outside resources that can help you with building your team and your business. And then consider, so do you need an advisory board or a board of directors? So for everybody who just joined, these are things to consider when you're starting your company. But keep in mind that you don't have to have the answers right now. These are things to just brainstorm on and think about and, evolve as you go down the path of building your business. So filling the management roles, it's tricky when you bring in co-founders because this is your business, this is your baby, this is something that you are really committed to and you're really excited about. And sometimes it's really hard to share that with somebody else. But it's really important for the long-term sustainability and scalability of your company and your ideas and your venture to bring in other people who can help you execute. So think about what do you bring to the venture? What is your strong suit? What is the thing that you're very interested in seeing happen? And where are you coming from? And then what are some of your weaknesses and your blind spots? Now I know that a lot of people will look at their weaknesses and things that they don't know, and they'll say, okay, I need to go get educated. I've talked to founders who are like, I need to go get a degree in this, and then I can start a company. And it's like, well, you could get a degree if you really want to. Or you can find a founder who has that relevant background and expertise. And together as a team, you can have all of the elements that you envision for your company. So just keep in mind that your company does not have to just be you. It is a shared responsibility with your co-founders who are excited about the problem you're solving and the vision. So thinking outside of yourself and thinking about the co-founders that you're going to bring in, think about what sort of key tasks need to be completed. So if we think back to our business model and some of the previous conversations we've had, what are the things that need to be done in order for this company to be executed? How am I going to build the product? How am I going to reach my customers? What kind of partners am I going to work with? And who do you need on your team to help facilitate all of that? So think about who will complete them. Do you want somebody who has a very specific niche background, or do you want somebody who has this personality that's just a go-getter, that's excited to help you to do things? What does that role look like, and who is going to fill it? Think about the best way to complete these tasks. So functionally and financially, does it make sense to keep it in-house, or does it make sense to hire somebody outside of your group? And then think about how you evaluate your results. So we put together a list of tasks that need to happen, but how do you measure if you were successful? So keep that in mind. If you're going to come up with something that needs to be done, you're going to say, okay, I need to hire someone, or I need to contract out. And then I did that, and I'm paying X amount of money to do it. How do I evaluate whether or not that accomplished what I needed it to accomplish? So as the entrepreneur, you need to decide how to accomplish all of these tasks. And you need to know what you need in your management team in order to execute. And it's important that you know yourself and your strengths and what you're good at, so that you can find others who can complement, and you can build a very full and well-rounded team. So making the most of your team. It is very hard, I find, to go from your solo founder entrepreneur to the 3-person, 4-person team that you may grow into. And the growing pain I find is that, you have been doing everything. It is your venture, it's your idea, it's all something that you have been working on. And so you may bring on people because you know that you need to, and you know that it's sustainable and it helps you scale. But if you bring them on and then you end up doing it all yourself anyway, make sure that you're making the most of your team, that you are really leaning on them, and you are really doing this as a team. So the venture itself evolves a little bit when you go from the solo founder with an idea to now you've got other people who are committed to your idea and they're helping you execute. So remember that you are evolving this into a full team venture versus a solo thing. So keep them up to date on what you're working on. Make sure that you update them on conversations, any sort of changes in the product, everything. Things move very quickly in the startup environment. So just make sure that you're keeping your team along for the ride, or they will feel isolated and they're going to feel like they're not a part of it and they're not going to stick around. A great one is to make sure that you're seeking your member input when you develop a vision and you plan to achieve it. So it's really important when you have a team to get the insight and to get the feedback from people on your team. I mean, you brought them in because they are really strong at something that maybe you're not that strong at. And you want to make sure that you're getting that input and getting that perspective, so that you can develop a holistic and comprehensive vision that really makes the most sense for the long-term success of the company. So make sure that you're stopping and you're seeking input as you're developing. It's also a really great way to ensure long-term engagement of your team. If you are engaging them and you are asking their thoughts and opinions and you are bringing them along for key decisions. And so, of course, keeping them up to date on your goals is really important. And so setting KPIs at the start is really key. And so these are the things that we hope to accomplish this quarter, this year. And then having regular check-ins with your team members and saying, okay, this is how we're doing. We're doing great. We're not doing great. This is what the plan is to do better. What do you guys think? And so just always having those conversations and bringing them in as equals is a really, really great way to make sure that you're going in a good direction. And then also periodically assess the needs of the organization, talent, and skills, and the structure of the team. So especially in early stage venture development, I have encountered a solo founder and they're like, okay, this is the thing I'm going to make. I'm very excited about it. And then I'm going to stack my team, and they go a little overboard. And they say, okay, this person's got like a PhD or a degree from somewhere, and they've got a really fantastic background experience, and they build a rockstar team. I've seen this a couple of times. And then they go into the process of doing their market research, and they build their business model, and they look at the product, and maybe the product doesn't do what they thought it could. Maybe the customers are really not interested. For whatever reason, they have to pivot. I find that you may be unable to pivot if you have built such a team because you're going to want to still work with them and leverage their expertise, but maybe it's no longer a fit. And I have seen startups kind of run themselves into the ground because they're like, well, I've got to find a way to make this work. They've committed, we're going to do this. And they don't allow themselves to pivot. And if they don't pivot, they're not going to be successful. So be cautious. Don't bring on a ton of people all at once. And we're going to get into compensation later, but be very cautious about who you bring in, when you bring them in, and be prepared that if you are going to pivot, they are committed to the vision itself and the things that you're trying to accomplish, so that if you do have to pivot, they're willing to make that pivot with you. So keep that in mind with the people that you plan to bring in. So I want to spend some time doing this short activity, and I can actually give you guys 10 minutes because there's a lot of questions here. But I would like you guys to just do check boxes, right? Go through each of these functions and determine whether or not this is a current need or if it's a future need. Tools like this help you identify what is really important right now. What do I need in a team right now? Versus who am I going to bring on in the future? And doing this current versus future need assessment helps us not overcommit and bring in all these people and all these founders because we think we need them, but really, like, what is the actual function that we need to accomplish right now? And who is going to help me accomplish it? Like, let's keep this rooted in fact, rooted in today, and not a potential future that we've dreamed up that might not happen. So let's just focus on, these are the actual functions, these are current needs and future needs. So let's take 10 minutes to do that. We'll come back at 12:24. And feel free to drop any questions into the chat. Okay, just a few more minutes. Any questions, comments, feedback on this activity, thoughts?
Cara, I'm not seeing any comments in the chat.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so I think I'm going to end that one a little bit early, but keep in mind all of this stuff is on Canvas. And, you know, I am sharing the slides. So if you have any questions on this, this is key to think about what you need to cover for your business is key management functions. So team compensation. Team compensation for a startup is kind of a tricky conversation. It's a tricky topic. And so we have some information here that a lot of this stuff is a lot more relevant to much bigger companies. I'm going to share it anyway, because there is a couple of things in here that are relevant. So I'm going to give you an overview, but keep in mind that as a startup, you're not expected to like have a pension plan or some of these other things. So these are, I would say that this is like the most you could possibly do, but don't think that, you know, you can't start a business unless you're offering all this stuff. This is just an example. So some examples of direct compensation are just your regular salary and wages, some incentives, and you see a lot more incentives with startups because there's less cash. And so I would actually encourage you to focus really on the incentive section. And so think about commissions, piece rates, bonuses, stock options. Stock options are, and I've specifically called out stock options because this is frequently done in startups. And so you can get a portion of the company as part of you being a member of it. So a founder in it. You know, and so it's really great if your salaries are lower than what your founders may be expecting, because they can take a portion of the company. And so this is something that we're not going to be talking about in today, but you know, if you are bringing on founders and you do want to make stock options an option, I would not encourage you to make that as part of the initial offer. You know, so what you see a lot of the time is if you're with us for a certain period of time, you know, then you can get stock options. And what that does is it encourages people to stick around and help you build the business versus they come into your business, they take some stock, they're gone 6 months later, and it really wasn't worth it. So stock options are great, but make sure that you space them out and you time it. And, you know, it's given to founders who are sticking around, who are actually building something with you. Profit sharing is another really great one. I think gains sharing is similar in that. Indirect compensation. So, vacations, breaks, holidays. The cool thing about a startup is you can be a little bit more flexible about your benefits and the things that you offer that are indirect compensation. And so think about all the different things that you can offer, but keep in mind that these are really, all of these are just for like these big corporations. You're not expected to have all of this stuff. So for recruiting and for hiring, one of the most important things is finding a cultural fit and finding somebody that shares a vision. And I don't mean a vision of the product, but a vision of the problem that you're trying to solve, a vision of what you're trying to create in the community, the vision of the impact. If you guys have that in common, that's really a lot more important than the product or the idea, because that may change, that may pivot, but it's really important that you are aligned on more intrinsic values. And so thinking about attracting qualified applicants with quality of life, maybe you give them challenging work and learning opportunities. If it's a startup, it's going to be challenging work and very rewarding work. Management, compensation, sense of purpose. I find that a lot of the founders who do what they do, it's for the sense of purpose. They're very driven about the thing that they're creating, the impact that they're affecting, and they're excited about that opportunity. And so you want to find people who are as excited about it as you are. Ways that you can recruit, maybe your co-founders know somebody and they can bring somebody in, sometimes university networks, but I would caution you to not go there and find somebody who just wants to be an intern. You want to find co-founders who are going to build this with you, not just work for you and work under you. Maybe your investors may help you get connected to your network. Your investors are a great resource. Some digital recruiting. This is on here, but I would say that it's a fine line between being a co-founder and then just hiring someone to do a job. And so things like Indeed and ZipRecruiter, they may just want to be hired, but you want to bring in somebody who has a shared mission and values with you. So, these are all places to look, but make sure that you're finding somebody who is a cultural fit, shares the vision, and is excited. LinkedIn is really a great resource. If you haven't updated it, and you're looking for somebody, I would recommend updating that. So the hiring process, generally you put it out there, maybe you put it on LinkedIn, or somewhere else. You can do a quick screening process that saves you some time. Have a quick 5-minute conversation, make sure that they're really on the same page. You're excited about them, they're excited about you. Then you have a formal interview, and you just, what are you looking for? We go back to that checklist. What are you trying to accomplish? What kind of person or relevant background is going to help you accomplish that? And then make sure that you're developing these interview questions in advance so that you're making sure that you're ticking all those boxes and you're asking all the right questions so that you are finding the right person. I know some people who like to go into interviews without questions, and what ends up happening is you don't ask the questions that need to be asked, or you go off on a big tangent and you have a conversation, and that's a great way to get to know somebody as a person, but maybe you didn't ask the right questions for the job function. So make sure that you're developing those questions in advance. Bias is an interesting thing to find in hiring. So remember, when we're talking about your strengths and who you are as the leader of this company and your venture, you know your own strengths, but you have to also identify and recognize the things that are your weaknesses and finding somebody who can complement that. And so sometimes we tend to be biased towards, well, they're doing it in a way that I wouldn't do it. And that's kind of what you want, though, right? Like, you want somebody who's going to do it in a way that you wouldn't do it, because you want a different perspective. You want their relevant background to complement and to support what you're doing. So beware of bias. They are meant to be different, coming from a different perspective than you. So make sure that you're, yes.
Sorry, I can see Tamara is struggling. Can you hear us, Tamara? Okay.
I'm trying to find you. I'm at the address, but no one knows anything about it.
Okay, so we were in the admin building when we were doing it from there, but Cara and I are both remote today. I would say, knowing how hot it is, just go inside and ask for a place to sit down.
Well, and
Okay.
Tiffany Welch in there, she said that there should be a computer for you to be able to join from there also, if you want to do that. Yeah, we were in person, but a lot of the participants have been remote, so we moved it remotely.
Oh, I see. I'm just
Yeah,
gonna
if
go
I had
ahead
known you were
and
gonna
give
be
it an
in
ask.
person, I would have come down. I'm over in Fernley.
Oh, okay. I was hoping to be able to pick up a book
Oh,
or something that I can follow along with more easily than I've been.
Tiffany has a bunch of the books. She should still have some. And if she doesn't, I can bring some more.
Excellent. And that's in the building that I'm in right now.
Yeah, so if you go to the front desk and you
Mhm.
ask to see Tiffany Welch,
Okay.
she should have a few copies.
Thank you very much.
Of
Okay.
course. Sorry about that.
That's okay.
Are you in the admin building? Because I couldn't tell exactly which building you were going into.
I'm in the gray building, not the main building. I think it was something to do with I'm not sure.
I
Mhm.
think it's yeah, you gotta go into the main building.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, it's got like a front office and then the
Yes.
back door
Okay.
is closed.
Tiffany. Thank you.
Tiffany Welch, yes.
Okay. All right.
Okay. Thank you. And then references. So always make sure that you check your references. You can have a really great conversation with somebody, and think they tick all the boxes, and then you call their references and that's not the case. So, this is a really important decision when you decide to bring on co-founders. So, make sure you check their references. So some questions to reflect on, and I will take a few minutes to do this, but, think about how, did I do this already? I think I introduced this, in an earlier slide, but we're going to actually answer these questions. So how are you going to fill out your management team? How is your role going to change as the business evolves? How can you hire the best people for your team? What sort of outside resources should you bring in and when? And then do you need an advisory board or a board of directors? So, given what we just covered, if we can spend the next 5 minutes filling out these questions and these activities, and I will give 5 minutes on the clock. Okay, we're just going to give it one more minute. Okay, great. Any thoughts, comments, feedback on that activity? Tamara, were you able to get a workbook?
She's out to lunch right now.
Ah, okay. Hopefully you can get one.
Yes, thank you.
So outside resources. I mentioned this earlier, but thinking about outside of your direct team, resources that you can bring in that are not necessarily employees. And we'll talk about employees versus contractors, but thinking about, legal advice. So we saw JD Peters came and spoke last week, was it? And then we also provided the contact information for Jose Padilla, really great lawyers who you can speak to for any legal advice. Thinking about also your accounting and your bookkeeping, you can keep this in-house, or you can hire somebody to support. Marketing consultants, and depends on where you're trying to go, and it depends on how familiar you are with this market. But you can bring in outside consultants to support, and they can help with direct mailers, doing market research, like research on the market, regional studies, product and brand positioning, and helping you with your whole marketing plans. For your team, you can think about employees versus contractors. So employees are going to expect a lot of those benefits that I mentioned on a previous slide, but contractors require less, and they're a simple 1099. In some cases, that tax situation may be easier with a contractor. So keep in mind that you have different options with the type of support that you bring in. I've known some founders who, they need, think that they need to hire a lawyer, they need to become a lawyer. Yeah, you don't have to gain all this expertise yourself, you can outsource it. You can work with other people in order to have a fully well-rounded team. So two types of boards. And so we see an advisory board versus a board of directors. Advisory boards are advisory, and they may be your scientific and technology experts, bankers, marketing consultants, people who you want to add to your wealth of knowledge, to add to your team, without actually bringing them on. And so you can bring in some of their credibility. So you have a really great advisory board, and they have really relevant background and experience from well-known names of companies. That can lend you a little bit of credibility. So you may consider creating an advisory board, especially if you're just getting off the ground and you need some guidance and direction. Board of directors are a bit more formal than that. If a company is organized as a corporation, you must have a board of directors. They make big picture decisions and they elect officers. They have a fiduciary responsibility to the company and its shareholders. So keep in mind, who you may put on your board of directors. Who do you want to make these decisions? Board governance. So these are called bylaws. Most boards outline a set of bylaws that specifically lay out responsibilities and powers. It's the ultimate authority for making decisions about the company, and whether the advice of the board is binding, and whether things like compensation or employment decisions are the board's responsibility or fall within the management team. Basically, bylaws are the rule book. And so they govern the board, and they are very important to have in place. So I've covered all of the key elements for today, building your team, compensation, types of resources, and a little bit about advisory boards. Now, I've only lightly touched on all of these topics. I really encourage you to go into Canvas and to dig in a little bit deeper. There are additional resources in there. There's some really great videos, and there are the activities I mentioned. There are more activities in Canvas that you can go into, you can write into them, and then it completes an entire business model, business plan, management analysis, all of that stuff. All of our activities come together into a comprehensive plan for you. So be sure that you're taking advantage of Canvas and all of those really great resources. And so, one of the hardest things about starting your business is to trust other people with your vision and help you execute. But it's really important that you do trust others to help you build a really good, strong, well-rounded team so that you have long-term scalability and sustainability potential. And that's it for today. We'd love to take any questions. Oh, and then please also check in and fill out our mid-program survey if you can. It helps us make the program better. Thank you, Maggie.
Yeah, I'm not seeing any other questions though.
Okay. Well, if you guys do have any other questions, feel free to email me or, respond in Canvas or Slack or however you want to. So today, really, a lot of that stuff is relevant when you're starting to build and scale your team. Next week, Maggie is going to be driving us all through financials and fundraising, and it's really an exciting and engaging set of presentations. And so we're going to be really getting into some of the core elements of building your business model. And I'm sorry, as your business and, the finances and the whole pitch deck and what that looks like when you're presenting to investors. So, all right. Unless there are any other questions, we will see you all next week. Thank you for being here.
Thanks. Have a good weekend.
Thanks, Tamara. I hope that Tiffany
you
gets
all.
back in time for you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.